If you're just tuning in, if it's the first time you've tuned into one of these things, welcome. This is basically a hangout. This is basically what I would have been doing on this day anyway. Would have been in the studio working on the weekends. So coming up with stuff, practicing, learning new gear, all that kind of stuff. So I've started doing some live streams like this to do basically the same thing, to chat about what I'm doing while I'm doing it so that other people can, I don't know, join in, learn something, ask questions, teach me something, let me know what's going on. But yeah, let's see here. I think it's live. Looks like it's trying to connect. Let's see if things connect. Let me know if you can hear what's going on or see what's going on in the chat. I am not seeing it on here. Saying I have an error. Oh, there we go. Looks like we're live now. All right. Cool, cool. Hey, Troy. Good to see you on here. Hello, hello. Good morning from Australia. Good afternoon from Colorado. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon here, which I'm sure it's tomorrow there already in Australia. Good to see you. So anyway, yeah, I'm working on some stuff. I have a new module here that I will, let's go to the overhead look here. So here's a setup that I'm working with. This is this is my live setup for shows that I have coming up. It's kind of a scaled down, slimmed down live setup so that I can travel with it more easily. So this piece of gear right here, this modular, is made to fit inside one side of a rolling carry-on bag. And then the other machines fit into my backpack, and so that way I don't have to check a bag, don't have to worry about checking any of my gear, which is something that's always very, very stressful. So yeah, so that's what the setup is made to do, is designed to do. And so what I'm doing now is kind of working with the modules that I have in here, the voices that I have in here, and the effects and stuff, working on kind of learning my way through these voices really well so that I know where everything is, how everything works, because when I do live performances, I don't pre-prepare stuff and there's no way to do presets with any of this. So the whole idea is to be able to have a setup that I know well enough that I can make the sounds that I want in the moment when I want to make them, rather than having to save stuff as presets and pre-done patterns and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so before I got started here today, I was just messing around with some sequences, using the Oxy One and sequencing the Oxy Choral, which is this unit right here, and it's 8 voice multi-timbral. So I've got this set up to sequence all 8 voices separately. So each row is basically just like a row on a sequencer, like you'd have like here on the Octatrack or like on anything else. And so you can sequence it very much the same way. But what's cool about the Oxy One is that it sequences in key. So you can set it in the key that you want, and then you can move up and down through octaves, you can transpose, you can change keys, you can do all kinds of cool stuff. Great for note sequencing. So I've got that sequencing the modular. So it's sequencing the Oxy Choral via MIDI, and then via CV and gate, it's sequencing the other 3 voices here. I've got 2 Platts clones and a BIA, Basimus Iteratus altar. So yeah, that's that. So we'll go over this a little bit. I'll show you a little bit about what I'm working on. I'm going to work through some stuff. We'll jam out. If you have questions, pop them in the chat. Also, this is a new studio space for me. Just moved into this space about 2 months ago. It's been I've been building it out ever since. It's a room that we built in our basement of a new house we just moved into. So I may do a quick little tour around since I have cameras that I can move now. So show around a little bit of how I have everything set up here, as well as, yeah, working through some stuff. So here's what I was working on earlier. Let's see, I'll mute these tracks so we can just hear the, so yeah. Bass. Then I was working on something else with the Oxy, which is cool. You can see that these sequencers are running in different lengths. So I've got one that's set to 12 steps, and then the other one's set to 16 steps. So this one, when I bring this in, you'll see it's not synced up. So I'll stop this so I can start them both together, so you can hear how it will start in sync and then it slowly phases out of sync and then comes back into sync, which is pretty cool. So if you take a look at the sequencer, you can see how these are running. One of them is running on 16 steps, the other's running on 12 steps, so they kind of phase in and out of time. Something that I love to do, one of my favorite things about techno is doing it like that. So you hear it a little bit this way, but you hear it much more if you add in a kick. So I'll just bring in a kick for this. Let's see, a really simple one. So you'll notice how they phase kind of in and out of tempo or in and out of time. And one of the things I love about that with techno is that you want it to be kind of a hypnotic thing. You want things to be there but not there. So you want people to stay interested, so because it can get pretty loopy, but you want them to stay interested, but while at the same time having it be kind of hypnotic and have it be they don't really know why they're staying interested. And things like this, things like having different lengths of patterns is something that keeps things really interesting because the time is constantly changing together. And everything that you're hearing right now is just kick and closed hat, open hat that are coming from the digatone. or sorry, Digitact, and then everything else is coming from the Oxy One. From the Oxy Coral being sampled from the Oxy One. That is running through the Endorphin's Ghost, which is a multi-effects processor, so that has some delay on it right now. A little bit of filter, a little distortion, and compression. And what's cool with the filter, you can change up just the filter cutoff of the effect without changing up the main sound. And so listen what it sounds like when I change that up. So it's cool, it adds a whole bunch of different atmosphere in the background, just from very small movements. So it's pretty interesting, this module, because you can, one of the things that I always notice with live setups compared with when you're playing on the same night as a DJ is things can sound really thin. And I love the way the choral, or the Ghost kind of takes that signal from the choral and then expands it out and moves it around, so it kind of helps to fill up the spectrum. So just an example of what you can do with just a drum machine and one voice. So all of that sound was coming from the Oxy Coral, like I said, and it's going through this Endorphin's Ghost. So those things are really powerful together because you get a ton of sounds out of that. So we were only actually playing 2 of the lines of sequences. So 2 different synth voices inside the Oxy. You can do up to 8 mono voices at a time. Something else that's really cool about it is that it is also up to 8-note polyphonic. So you can mix and match those things any way you want. So you can take a sound, like there's an FM sound in there, for example, and if you wanted that to be a 5-note polyphonic FM sound, you can do that and then have 3 other mono voices to make your 8. Or you could have 5 mono voices and a 3-note polyphonic voice, or however you want to mix and match. So it's pretty cool. The way I have it set up right now, just because I'm working on learning the module, is I have all 8 set up as mono voices, so I can sequence them on 8 different channels and kind of have that be a way to kind of practice messing around, seeing how to get through and move around within the module, and use the interface to kind of get what I want out of the sound. So I get comfortable with it so that I can perform with it for the shows that I have coming up. Let's check over here on the chat and see what's going on. Saggy Dogs, back again. I'm glad to see you back. Thank you for coming out another day in a row. Is there any benefit to using the Oxy sequencing with the Electron machines? Yes. I'm a huge fan of electron sequencers. Anybody who's watched this channel for a while knows that. I get accused all the time of being a fanboy, which I am, just because they're so good. And I always said, kind of find me something better and I'll use it. And the Oxy One is actually better at a lot of things. There's certain things that it's not as good at. For example, because the electron machines have either samplers or synths built into them, you can parameter lock your sound design. So you can hold down a step and you can lock in things. So like, for example, if we were to go into, let's say the kick here, and I wanted to change something up per step, I can just hold this step down and I've got note velocity, note length. I can make this a conditional trigger, which you can also do on the Oxy. You can change up the source, so you can actually parameter lock samples by step, change the tuning, the play direction, bit rate, start length, end length, filter, cutoff, resonance, envelope shape, envelope amount. So all of those things are able to be parameter locked to a step, which is incredibly powerful. And that's why I love the electron sequencers. Now, that said, what I really love about the Oxy that most of the electrons don't do. So now the Octatrack and the Digitone are exceptions to this, actually the Octatrack specifically. You can set the Oxy One to a key, and then for example, I've got one group of 16 steps here for the sequencer. If I want to hold down a note here and then change the note of that, as I scroll through those notes, it will only give me notes that are within that key. And that is not something that you can do in the Electron boxes as of now. I would love to see that in a future update. The Octatrack can do it as part of its ARP function. So you can go into the ARP menu, you can set it to a key, and then you can choose notes by step. But the other machines don't do that. And so since I'm not using the Octatrack to sequence anything, it's just my performance mixer and effects processing. That's why the Oxy is sequencing everything that's in the modular case, so that I can generate random patterns. I can randomly pick notes to make it sound like what I want as I improvise within a show, and know that there will be at least some control to the chaos, that everything will stay within that key. And there's a whole bunch of different keys that you can select from and things like that. So yes, long story short, yes, there are advantages to the Oxys over the electrons, and there's advantages to the electrons over the Oxys. I prefer the electron sequencer for sound, obviously, because the Oxy is not making sound, and you can control CV, but it's tedious to set up to have every single parameter. So if you have an outside synth that you want to sequence from the Oxy, you can sequence CC message parameter locks to that, kind of like what you do with the electrons, but it's an extra step. It's a lot of process. It's a bit tedious. With the electron machines, you can do that super easily with what's inside the machine. But yeah, so that's why there is advantages to using both. Let's see. Hi, I think I've seen a Tascam mixer in the background. Wonder how you find it and how you use it. Thanks for the stream. You're welcome for the stream. Thanks for tuning in. So yes, over here, let's see, switch views here. So yes, over here behind me is a Tascam Model 24. And the way that that's set up, and the reason that I have that set up, is here in my studio, I have all of my, well, actually, maybe now's a good time to do a little bit of a tour. All right, now we're gonna do the mobile version. So, synths that are over on this wall, drum machines that are over on this wall, as well as this setup here, and the synths and drum machines that are over on this section, are all routed via audio into the Tascam. And so everything has a channel, so that I can, without turning on Ableton, I can have everything run through here. I have everything also MIDI run through the MRCC, which is down here. And that is my MIDI router. So I've got all the ins and outs, so it's really easy to send MIDI signal from one thing to another, to clock the whole studio from one thing. The thing that's really cool about the Tascam and the MRCC is that they can operate standalone, so without the computer being on, or they both have a USB connection to the computer and to Ableton, which means that I can be jamming around and having fun and not stressing out too much about how things are connected and routed and stuff. But then if I want to record something, I can just switch on the computer, switch on Ableton, and then send everything from the Model 24 multi-tracked into Ableton, and all of the MIDI can be controlled via Ableton through the MRCC, so they can all be clocked together. So yeah, so it's a way to have everything work together in the studio so that I can jam on stuff. The idea was to have the whole studio be kind of like a bigger scale version of a live setup. So that way I can jam on that stuff. And then when I want to record, I have a template in Ableton that has everything multi-tracked in for audio and video. So I can just hit record, jam out, and then go back and kind of pick and choose the pieces and parts that I want. So let's see what else we have on here. Oxy question is also about how do you compare Deluge to Oxy and Electron? You know, it's funny, the Oxy gets compared to the Deluge a lot because it has the same buttons, but it's totally different. It's a completely night and day different machine. When you're talking about sequencing, the Deluge is one sequencer that has kind of unlimited tracks, and it can be sequenced in basically that way as one sequencer. The Oxy is actually these 4 buttons over here. It's actually 4 different sequencers. So like right now on sequencer 3, I have it set up as a multi-track sequencer with 8 tracks that is sequencing via MIDI 8 different voices in the choral. I have sequencer 1 set up as a mono voice, sequencer 2 as well, and sequencer 4 as well, just because that's how I'm using them. But they can be set up as polyphonic sequencers, stochastic sequencers, multi-track sequencers, chord sequencers. So there's all different types of sequencers that can be run through this. The other big difference, obviously, is that the Deluge has built-in synths. It has the ability to sample and manage samples. The Oxy is just a sequencer. It doesn't make any sounds on its own. So you have to connect it to other things to be able to use it. Now, comparing them as sequencers, the thing that I like about the Oxy for my workflow is the ability to set keys, change keys. You can actually have all of the sequencers follow the key of a master sequencer. So if you have a bass line on one and you're doing chords on another, and you change your chord, you can have the bass line that you recorded follow along with that key change. So lots of cool stuff. Now, the Deluge is really good for sequencing melodic things because you've got, you know, kind of unlimited number of patterns and pattern lengths, and you can really quickly and really easily sequence melodies in it. The music that I do tends to be less melodic and more rhythmic based, and so yeah, so that's one of the reasons why I'm using the Oxy right now and how it compares to the Deluge. Let's see, did I keep the Swarm? Yes, the Swarm is over there. It's over on that shelf, and it's basically, I'm using it in the studio. The hard thing for me is, here, I can grab it and show you exactly the issue. So the Swarm is a mono voice. And when you look at this setup, you look at my, and I'm trying to scale things as much as I can for travel. The size of this and what I can get out of it, look at the size of the swarm. So it's basically a quarter of the entire modular case, and it's one monophonic voice. So for me, it was just taking up too much space to be able to do one thing. As much as I love it, I love the sound palette, I love how unique it sounds, I love all of that, but it's very big for what it does. Now, I have single monophonic voices in, you know, tiny spaces. I have this voice right here is a Platts clone that does, it has 8 different melodic synth engines, 8 different percussive synth engines, all in one thing that size. And then you've got the swarm that's this big and it has one voice. So yeah, so that's why the swarm is not in this setup. I still have it because I still love it. I still love the sound palette to use in production. But as far as taking it with me to travel, it's too big for what I get out of it. Let's see, yo, CK Sample, good to see you. Thanks for stopping in. What am I using for a clock? The Octatrack is clocking everything. It's going through this quadra through right here, which I think you can probably see. So it's going into that, and then that's taking the signal, duplicating it, sending it to Digitact, Black Box, and Oxy. And then the Oxy is clocking everything that's in here via one single patch cable. Let's see here. MRCC. Yeah, I love the swarm, but those trigger pads, yeah, the same. I live in a really dry place in Colorado, so my hands are always dry, and those trigger pads never work. So I would have to like lick my finger to get it to work. So it is a little bit of a pain that. But yeah, no, I love the swarm. It's a very cool machine. But it's it was just too much space in my luggage for doing a limited thing. All right, so let's get back just a little bit to making some music here. So back to what I was working on. right. Cool. Yeah, super fun. Let's see here. Go back into the chat. Clock question. Have you ever recorded a tight transient from all synths to see if they line up with Bard Ableton with the Octatrack to sync clock? So actually the Octatrack is clocking this. So what's actually clocking the rest of the room is on the desk back there, I have a Syntact that is running into the MRCC, that is sending clock, and then the MRCC is sending out clock to everything else in the room. The Syntact is connected to Ableton through USB via Overbridge, and so if I do turn on Ableton, I can have Ableton become the master clock. It's only clocking one device, and then that one device is clocking everything with only one connection through the MRCC. So there's nothing daisy chained, and the amount of latency is tiny in there. So yeah, no, so I've never noticed the difference. Ableton has some really good latency compensation in it, so it's pretty easy to get out anything if something does go off. I have a couple of older synths. I have an SH101 that can go off, but I don't normally use the sequencer inside that. I'm usually sequencing it from something else. So yeah, I haven't noticed that. And to be perfectly honest, I am probably the least picky person you will ever find as far as all of the finer details of music production. I used to get completely sucked into, you know, spending hours tuning kicks and snares and making sure that everything was exactly right and the right EQ and the right compression. And there was, I saw finally it was a YouTube video actually, and it was, I can't remember who this was, but it was a guy who was a big producer in the 90s, big rave producer, and now he's scoring films. And in his studio, he doesn't have any treatment, he doesn't have any of that stuff, and he scored some of the biggest films out there. He scored Deadpool, he scored, you know, a bunch of other stuff. And he basically said, look, no one's ever gonna listen to my stuff in a perfectly treated room with perfect headphones, with a perfect, you know, gauge to see if this is all identically right. So I'm not gonna write the music like that either. I'm not gonna write it in a space like that because it'll never be heard in a space like that. And I kind of feel the same with a lot of the details. Like I could get super, super in the weeds with stuff, or I could make music that sounds fun. And I would much rather make music that sounds fun than get into the weeds of how many milliseconds of latency difference between that machine and that machine. If it gets to be something that bugs me, or if I hear it when I'm playing something and I just really don't like it, okay, I'll go in and I'll adjust it, and easy enough to do. But no, never was something that I was too overly concerned about. Let's see. Let's see here. Found the after party. Yeah, we'll get back to the music in just a second here. We're trying to mix it up with music and talking because, you know, this is a lot of a work session, but it's also a bit of a jam session. So I like to answer some questions, but I will definitely get back to that in a moment. Let's see here. Problem with recording each with DAWs that you get different latencies depending on how you are feeding each synth into the computer. Back to manually adjusting. Yeah. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I really like Ableton. It's just because it's one of the easiest for doing latency compensation if it becomes an issue. But to be honest, since I set up this studio, it hasn't been an issue. That MRCC, I've been blown away by how well that sends out clock to everything or through that. And I don't know how or why it does it the way that it does, but clocking it from one device, everything seems to be really well in time. And I'll show you guys, you know, on another one of these streams when I'm not working on stuff with my live set for some shows, I will show you some live jamming on all of the gear so that you can kind of see and hear how everything works together, because nothing in the live version, when it's not going into Ableton, nothing has had any latency compensation on it at all, and it's tight. So I credit the MRCC. I'm a huge fan of that thing. Let's see, anything else? All right, I think that's it for that for now. So what I want to do now is I want to work a little bit on some drum stuff. You know, I like to go in and create drums. Drums are the only thing that I pre-prepare when I'm going into a live set. Like all the melodic stuff, I don't save any of these sequences. So like I'll go in and I will delete these out just like this, because I don't like to have the same stuff all the time. I don't like to play the same stuff all the time. And I'd rather have it be something in the moment. And so all of this I just kind of leave blank. I'll set up a template that has maybe keys or that has certain routing to certain instruments, so I don't have to do that every time. But I don't pre-plan out or pre-patch or pre-select anything from the melodic side. Now, from the drum side, that's a little bit different. So the way I have my drums set up in the Digitact is they're all drum samples that, obviously it's a sample player, that I made in the analog rhythm. And the reason why is that the analog rhythm is incredible for layering samples with analog synth engines. So what I'll do is I'll find a sample that I like, but maybe there's something a little bit, you know, that I don't like about it. I can also layer in a synth engine and I can add a little bit of attack, a little click at the beginning. I can make it boomier. I can add more decay, and I can layer those things together. And then when I come up with the kick that I like or the drum sound that I like, I can resample it as its own sample, load it in the Digitact, and then it's a much smaller form factor to take with me when I go out to perform. So yeah, so that's how everything is in here. Then what I do is every pattern, so I've got, what have I got here, 10, 11, 12 patterns that I have, that I just kind of reuse and save over the top of all the time as I come up with new stuff. So yeah, the way I kind of keep track of things in my performances is that track 1 is always the kick, 2 is always clap or snare, 3, 4, 5 are generally percussive stuff, 6 is closed hat, 7 is open hat, and 8 is generally a ride. On some of my things I don't have a ride and I need to kind of sort that out. But that way at least I know where everything is. And when I use the global mutes, so let's say for example I'm playing just a kick and hat like this, and I want to switch to a different pattern, those two, everything else will be muted, and those two things will be playing when I switch to a new pattern. So if I go over to this one, you'll hear when it switches. So it's still the kick and hat, and if I change to another pattern, it's still the kick and hat. So it's a different kick, a different hat, but at least I know exactly where everything is. So that way it helps me not get lost as I'm kind of improvising through a set, and I have this foundation of drums that I can always go back to. Now, that said, just to give an example of kicks. So this is how I have the kick sampled for example, this pattern. So it's a 4 on the floor kick, and I have kind of like a fake rumble sampled in there, or sequenced in there for this particular kick. So if I want one that has a rumble, I've got this, and it's just sequenced with, you know, again, as I mentioned, parameter locking within the electrons is pretty cool. So you can parameter lock, you know, volume to make it lower, or filter cutoff to make it a little bit different when you do that. Then when you switch to a different pattern, this one's pretty similar. Then you go to like this one. So it's still basically a 4 on the floor kick, but with other things to keep it interesting in there. And then you can go in on this one, you know, by track, you can go in and I think that a little better. Go to another pattern. This one's kind of a breakbeaty kind of thing, this next one. And that one's just got a little bit of delay on it. So if I take the delay off, it's got a little reverb too. I know, reverb on the kick. I'm that guy. Again, I do that here. I'll put a little reverb on kicks and things like that. I know it can get muddy, but if you're careful with it, what it can also do is it can give you something, it can help fill out the kind of the sonic spectrum when you're doing a live show. And that's one of the things that can make live setups sound thicker. And you know, having a thin sound is one of the weaknesses of live setups. And so it's one of the little tricks that I use to kind of do that, is to add in a little bit of sloppiness from having some rumble or some delay or some reverb. So I'll bring in a little delay. Just a tiny bit, so that it doesn't overdo it and it doesn't like become this weird cacophony of music, but at least it gives you something else to kind of fill things out. Now I'll do overdrive to do that as well, saturation as well. Let's go back to another drum beat here. Now, what you'll notice on this is you've got the 4 on the floor kick that's always playing. These 3 notes that are here, they have conditions on them. So this one happens every 25% of the time. This one happens 59% of the time. So what that does is, even though it's only a 16-step sequence, which I like to stick with 16 steps only because I like to be able to modify things on the fly, and I don't like to page through things as I'm modifying things while I'm performing. And adding in or like parameter locking in conditions like that makes it so that it feels like a much longer sequence, because it doesn't repeat every 16 steps. Every time it's different. So this might be a 128 step sequence before it repeats something again, just by adding some of those in, but you're keeping the basics of the kick. Something else that I always do as well, let's see, I'll do a better pad for this one. So track 2 is always like a snare or a clap sound or something that goes on that kind of offbeat. But what I always do when I sequence those in, I'll show you, if you notice, it's hitting these 2 all the time, but there's a whole bunch of other things that are sequenced there. Those are all set. The condition for all of those is set to, oops, oh, sorry, on the wrong one. Getting a little confused here. All right, sorry. So you've got these 2 that are playing all the time. That's kind of your traditional clap on your 5 and 13. But everything else has a trigger as well. But those are all set conditionally to fill. So that means that anytime I hit this button, the page button, which is the fill button on the Electron machines, I know I can do a snare fill. So if I want to just like change up the pattern, oops, have to be out of here. And then if I let it go, it goes back to the 5 and 13. Or if I want to do a snare roll, I can just hold it down. So it gives you some performative things, and that's all by putting a step on every single trigger, but having all of them except the 5 and 13 be conditional to fill, and the 5 and 13 are set up to play all the time. Same thing with, you know, hats and closed hats. I've got each one of those in there in a place where I know exactly where they are. And then 3, 4, and 5 tend to be like kind of random percussive elements or ear candy type things. That one actually got messed up. That is not supposed to be a hat sound. So let's go back to source. And, oh yeah, it's set up as a closed hat. So we want it to be. Let's find another sample here. I like that one. Yeah, let's keep it as that. So again, it's set up as a sequence. This one's a bit longer. And again, it's set up with different conditions and different notes. You can see the ones that are flashing here. I don't know if you can see that on this, but some of these are flashing. And what that flashing means is that there's something parameter locked to that. Let's see here. Okay. So when you've got a sequence that's like that, that is set to be something kind of random, but then you add in with, let's say, a kick and a hat. It's a little loud. So you can hear how it's just kind of in the background, adding in a bit of those kind of cool little ear candy sounds. And I do the same with other percussion. So you see, you can kind of build up a lot of that kind of groove using some random things, some things that are set to different probabilities, some things that are set to fill, some things that are set to kind of keep time, and that gives you a lot of groove with your drum patterns. Let's go back over here to the chat and see what everybody's saying here. The multi-clock seems to be the only way to really get correct clock to multiple synths. Yeah, I mean, if it's that important to dial everything into the millisecond, yeah, that the multi-clock is definitely the way to go. Works good enough doesn't count for me. Yeah, well, everybody's got their thing. I mean, I always joke it's close enough for techno, because I've never one time in my life ever been in a club and been like, oh, did you hear there's like 4 milliseconds of delay between the this and then that. Maybe when you're listening to stuff on, audiophile headphones, in stereo with whatever, maybe. But the music that I make is for parties. It's supposed to be the soundtrack to an evening, the soundtrack to a club night, to a vibe, and yeah. Most people are not there critiquing the latency of one instrument versus the other, but it depends on what you're producing. So that's what I'm producing, and if you're producing something different, it's absolutely not going to be the case for you, for sure. But yeah, I mean, the MRCC has been great for me, but I think if you really want to dial in your latency and have it be exactly 100% to the millisecond, I think the ERM multi-clock's the only way to go. Let's see here. Manual latency compensation for each synth should work in theory. Yes, it can work in theory. Doesn't let you do that. Just to record the electron directly into the interface. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to check latency, but yeah, that's the best way, is to get a super clicky percussive sound so that you can see exactly where it starts, and have every single thing record in a sound, and then you can just go in and it's cool in Ableton because you can kind of click and drag in that space, and it will tell you how many milliseconds of space you need to adjust, and then you can just go in and adjust it. So it's pretty solid. The good thing about the way I have things set up, and the way I kind of recommend to people set up in their studios, is that they set things up with a template if they're going to be recording into a DAW, and so that way you don't have to adjust that stuff every time. Certain things, older analog machines can go in and out a little bit, but most of the modern machines won't do that so much. So once you get something set up in a template, it's pretty much dialed in the way that it wants to be. So, hey, Sign Mountain, what up? Glad to see you on here. Welcome to my Sunday afternoon of making music at home. This is 3 days in a row of live streams. And as I mentioned yesterday, these are going to be kind of sporadic because, you know, with day job, with family, with work travel, with shows and things like that, it's not always possible. So I'm not going to be on a set schedule of when I do these. So it's going to be kind of whenever and however. If I'm in the studio doing stuff, I will just put on the live stream and invite you guys in. Come on over and hang in the studio and let's make music and chat about music. Via USB overbridge and inconsistent latency through the overbridge plugin. Yeah, which, Saggy Dogs, which DAW are you using? I have heard that with Logic, that it is a huge pain in the butt to adjust the latency with overbridge. But with Ableton, I have never had an issue. Yeah. So, just to go back a little bit to the music making side of things, and talk a little bit more about how I have stuff set up here, since I get asked about it all the time. The Octatrack is just acting as a performance mixer. So it's got Digitac coming into one set of inputs, the modular, this main output from the performance mixer going into the other set of outputs. Black box is going into a channel on the performance mixer over here. These all have sends that can go out to the different effects that I have in here. And so that way it allows for all of that to happen outside of this. Then everything gets summed in the Octatrack, and then the Octatrack is also acting as like DJ effects. So if you've seen EasyBot's channel, he made this amazing template for effects, and that's what I'm using down here. So yeah, it gives you a lot of kind of DJ style effects that you can use with the crossfader in a really easy way, in a really quick assignable way, which is great. And that allows for like buildups and breakdowns and transitions and stuff like that. So, you know, as an example, if we're going along, we've got a voice doing something here. Let's make a voice do something, right? So if we're cruising along like this, and let's say we want to bring something else in, we can do, you know, your typical high pass, just like you would if you were on a DJ mixer, and then you can bring in something else. So it just gives you a way to do little transitions, bring things in, bring things out. I like to use it as well as a way to change from kit to kit. As I mentioned, so all my patterns are set up as drum kits. So like, let's say I want to take out my kick and do a big riser, like if I'm doing a break. Now I can change patterns during this break, right? And you'll hear it slightly, right? You'll hear these two change. They change, did you hear it? And then if I add the new kick, and then when I come back in, so it's a different hat, different open hat, different closed hat, different kick, right? If you just wanted to do, let's say, a high pass with a delay, and maybe use this as an opportunity to bring in another sound. It's a way to kind of smoothly transition in other sounds.
Rhythms.
Cool, fun little jam there. As you can hear, like almost all of the melodic stuff was all coming from that Oxy choral. So I'm super impressed. I've only had this for about a week and a half now, 2 weeks now. Shout out to the people at Oxy. Thank you, Manuel, for sending that over. It is, yeah, I'm super impressed. I'm super impressed. I mean, it's definitely going to be a centerpiece of what I'm doing. So let's see what we've got in the chat here. EasyBot template is a perfect fit for your workflow. Yes, it is indeed. Couldn't do what I do without it. Let's see, best timing I could get. Okay, lazy beats are a choice, not a standard obligation. Absolutely. How dialed in you make your music is totally up to you. And all that matters is, well, all that matters in the end with art is that you like it. So if you like what you're doing, then you should do it that way. And if other people like it, that's cool too, but it should basically be what you like. So make art for you, and then if other people like it. Actually, one of the best quotes I ever heard from Carl Cox, he said that, and I don't know if you know this, but Carl Cox started off as a dancer. He was like a rave club dancer and did like, he was like a, I don't know, a dancer before he became a DJ decades and decades ago. And so he's very much into the music and dancing. And so one of the things that he said one time, which I thought was a great quote, was, I throw a party for myself in the DJ booth, and I just hope that everyone else in the room is into what I'm into at that moment, which I think is super cool. And it's kind of the way that I approach live performance as well. Like, I'm making music that I like the sound of, and I hope other people do too. And I try and make music that fits the vibe of the moment and the place and all of that, which is a little difficult here in a basement studio when there's not a crowd of people in the middle of the night and lights and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, I always try to make music that is, you know, that fits the moment when I'm making it, and kind of use the machines to translate the vibe into a soundtrack for the evening that people are having, and hopefully it makes them have a good time. And that's always kind of the objective of things. Let's see here. Going hard, yes, I guess. Yeah, having fun, that's for sure. Do you have any way of DJ style hearing the next track or sound before allowing it to be heard? Yes, there is. So with the Octatrack, it has a cue out, so you could hear the whole thing, but you can't, because I have all the drums coming into one and then all of everything else coming into the other. I don't really have a way to divide those out within the Octatrack. So I don't really use the cue out in the Octatrack at all. What I can use is this WMD performance mixer, which is absolutely, for me, the best modular case mixer out there. It has a headphone jack, and if you notice, there is a little white button down here, and every one of those is a cue, just like you would have on a DJ mixer. So if you wanted to cue an individual voice, dial something in as far as a pattern and the sound of it, and then bring that in, you can do that with headphones through here. I tried it, and it was actually one of the original reasons why I bought this mixer in particular, but I don't ever use it because I found that it was really distracting, and I was kind of losing track of what was going on in the moment by trying to kind of make the next track in my headphones. And so I would much rather use my experience and my knowledge with the modules that I have to be able to, you know, I'm pretty decent at visually sequencing things, so I can kind of look at the grid and know where rhythmically things will sound good, so I can plunk those notes in there. And then because I've got keys dialed in here, I can change notes within the key, even without hearing it. And then I can bring in that sound slowly and kind of dial it in. And so it's kind of the way I like to do it. I like to get stuff going, and then, you know, kind of hold on and go along for the ride, and try to keep the car on the road is the way I think about it sometimes. So yes, Troy, you can do that, but I actually don't, because I find it distracting to what I'm doing. Yes, you can do that with the Octatrack. Yes, you can. Actually, you can. That'll work. Yeah, it's pretty fun. I think the vocal you use work really well in your style. Yeah, I was mentioning on the last live stream that it's really hard to find the vocals that I like. I tend to like, you know, North African, Middle Eastern, Indian, Asian scales. So like, for example, it's one of the things I love about the Oxy is that like I have things in Arabian scale, in Phrygian, and in Persian scale, because I like that. I like those kind of minor and diminished sounds that they have in there that when you kind of put them together, they can clash against each other and create some tension, which I really love for techno music. And vocals, finding vocals from those areas that kind of go along with what I do is something that I've had a hard time doing lately without finding things that are too poppy vocals or whatever. And I'm not a huge sampler, I'm not great at it, so it's hard for me to sample off of other stuff. So if anybody knows of any good sources for vocals like that, definitely let me know, because it's been a huge pain to try and find those. So I have very few of them that I think I overuse a little. Let's see, I haven't been recording tracks in EasyBot template lately, been using the Flex version. Yeah, I mean, I don't use this gear to record really at all unless I'm recording a live performance. This gear is really set up to perform with. It's set up to be, you know, to take with me to play like an instrument. Like this whole thing for me plays like an instrument, like a single instrument. And that's really the way it was set up. And I can record in from this if I want to, but yeah, I tend to keep those things a bit more separate. Although I do like recording in the things as I make them, because otherwise they're lost forever whenever I'm done, because I sequence over things and delete sequences and stuff. But yeah, it's I don't generally use the performance template or anything like that, because I like to have the control over buildups and breakdowns and effects and automation and all that stuff for producing within the software that I'm producing on, and not just recording in the jam, although I do like to do that as well. What I do often with the hardware that I have here in the room is I will record things in on a clean track, and then I'll have an affected track as well that goes into Ableton. And so that way, if I like the effects that I was using, cool. And if I don't, I've got a clean track, and then I can add plugins or run it through, you know, pedals from the mixing board or whatever I choose to do that way. Let's see, there's usually some guy wailing in a mosque somewhere, take a mic. Yeah, there usually is. But unfortunately, the mosque stuff I've heard it's not super respectful to use that stuff. So I'd rather find some vocals if I can. But yeah, there's gotta be, I mean, somebody has to have made, you know, sample packs of, you know, kind of more exotic vocals. Anytime you go on any of the loop sites like Splice or Loop Cloud or whatever, all the vocals seem to be too literal for me. They're made for you know, commercial top 40 music, or they're made for hip hop, or they're made for EDM, or they're made for house music, where it's actual lyrics and they're singing with the melody, and it's a bit literal. They're telling a story with vocals, and that's not what I want. I like atmospheric things because I think it lends itself to the style that I play. But yeah, anyone else, if you have any questions, definitely pop them in the chat. Happy to answer any questions. And these live streams kind of flip over on YouTube and become posted videos, and the chat kind of goes along with that. So if you've got you know, stuff that you want, you can put it in there. If other people answer, you can always go back and find the answers in there. So it's pretty good. Hey, Honey Smack, good evening, all the way from Australia. Man, this is like the Australian guys. This must be the time of day for you guys, because Troy's in Australia as well. So this must be the time you guys get up first thing in the morning and just like go on random techno YouTube channels. I think that's cool. Anyway, glad to have you on there. If anybody doesn't know Honey Smack, check out his stuff. He is absolutely one of the best live techno performers I have ever seen in my whole life. So check out his stuff. It's very, very, very cool. So let's go back into what we're working on here. So as usual, I'm just gonna delete out everything that I have because I don't like using the same thing more than once. Okay. There we go. And let's start with something new. Let's go into a track here, come up with a different sound. Yeah, sure, why not? Let's do this one. And then let's just do some notes in here, actually. Cool. Here we go. Let's go with that one. How am I finding the ghost? Well, here, I'll give you an example. This that we're listening to right now without the ghost is this. And then I'm using the ghost with a little bit of delay, a little bit of distortion and compression, and no reverb. And I'm clocking the delay, and it's coming out like this. And then I can filter it. So yeah, it's cool. I like it to fill out kind of everything that's going on. Let's go to the BIA and do a little bass line here. enough getting lost in the jam here. Get back to the chat. Let's see here. Yeah, I made Honey Smack blush. Well, you should blush. You're amazing. Your stuff is awesome. I love watching what you do. How am I finding the ghost? I love it. Link to my rack. Yeah, on Modular Grid. There's a link to this most updated rack. I believe the only thing that might not be in there yet is the Oxy Coral, because I don't know if that is even on Modular Grid yet. Let's see here. Love that growly bass line. How are you creating that? That is through another one of my favorite modules, which is the BIA from Noise Engineering. That is, let's see here. This sound. That's this sound. And it's a combination of two things that can sound really growly together. One is the BIA and the other one is the Vio Ruina filter from Noise Engineering as well. I also have one of those on the Beehive over here, just because I love that filter, because you could add this you can add tons of grit, or you can take it off and have it be like, and just have it be like a normal filter, or you can like boost it up and it's got it. So that's all that filter. This is the only thing I'm changing. I'm not changing the sound at all. But then you've got within here, you have the ability to change the, like a wave folder. And then you've got built-in envelopes so you can lengthen up your decay. Or you can shorten it up and make it tighter. You've also got an attack. The attack's pretty cool too. This can be used for percussion as well. When you get the attack back past 12 o'clock, it adds noise. So you can hear how it adds that hit to it. That's coming from this. So as soon as you get it past 12 o'clock, so yeah, so that's where that growly bass line's coming from. It's from the BIA. Great for bass lines, great for melodies. The other thing that's cool that the BIA does as well is, so you can change from bass to alto to treble. So like that's the bass one using that sequence. But if I switch it to alto, and then you have all that same kind of, or if you go to alto, or sorry, treble, and then it has three different things. There's skin, liquid, and metal. So like if you're on this and then you go to liquid, it gives you more of a percussive attack. And then metal is, so yeah, it's a super fun module that does a whole ton of super fun things. Let's see here. So do you literally have the black box running loops and you just fade filter in when needed? Yes, absolutely. That's the only thing the black box is doing. It is my long time stretched samples. So atmospheres, vocals, and then I have a couple percussion loops on there that were things that I recorded in here that I really liked, or that I found that I really liked. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So what's cool about the black box is that, you know, one of the many things that it does, I'm only using it for like this tiny little portion of what it does, but one of the many things that it does is you can kind of launch loops that, or launch clips that will loop just like you would in Ableton. So if you just touch on it, it launches that. And then you can go in and you've got control over the level, the pitch, the filter, resonance, attack, sustain, decay, release. Then you've got effects per then you've got LFOs, you've got all different kinds of stuff that you can do with it, which is pretty cool to be able to use that for those longer time stretch samples. And yeah, before anybody says yes, you can do those with the Octatrack, but right now I'm using the Octatrack as a performance mixer. So I don't have the ability to do that and do what I'm doing here now, and I need it to do this because I don't know of anything else that does what it's doing here. And so obviously there's other things that can do samples, so I'm doing that way. Let's see here. Curious, how long do you borrow gear for reviews? It depends. So it's generally about a month or so that I can get a chance to learn something and then do a video on it and send it back. Sometimes, so my channel's a little bit different. I do YouTube on the side for fun. I'm not doing this as a job. I have a day job that I love very much. And so I do this for fun. And so a lot of times I will just ask to borrow gear that I'm really interested in, really curious about, not just getting like random gear like some people do. And then they kind of have to do a review on it and stuff. So I ask for stuff that I'm interested in and that I really want to learn. And then I'll do a video about learning it. And so yeah, it's fun. And often if I like something, I will actually just send them a message and say, hey, I really love this, I want to keep this. And so then I'll send them some money and pay for it. But yeah, if I send things back, it's usually about a month to give me enough time to learn it, come up with things, do a video and stuff like that to get it back. Do you have any latency with your headphones? Do you recommend using Bluetooth? So the cool thing about these are the III studio headphones, and the cool thing about them is that they can do Bluetooth, but that is not how I'm using them wirelessly. They actually have a little transmitter that you plug into the headphone jack, and so it's basically like virtually zero latency. I know there's a little delay, but nothing that you notice. So you can actually, play keyboards with it and do all kinds of stuff, and you never notice the difference. Like, they're specifically made for studio work, and that's why they have that transmitter, so that it transmits a more powerful signal without any latency, or with very little latency. And if you switch it over to Bluetooth mode, you can use it like to listen to music on your phone or whatever. And in that case, you do get kind of the normal Bluetooth latency, but that's a function of the method of sending the signal and not the actual gear itself. So this gear can receive on Bluetooth with latency or using their own system without latency. They're great. I love it because that way you can kind of move around the room and you don't have to worry about getting tangled up in cords and stuff like that. So I love them. You live in SoCal? No. Do you ever go to techno shows for 6 a.m. or Techno Fam? Actually, I don't live in SoCal. I live in Denver, Colorado. I was just out in SoCal last week for NAMM and to play a show out there, which was a ton of fun. But no, and I would love to do shows for 6 a.m. or Techno Fam LA, but they have not asked me to. So if they ever do, I think, more likely than not, the answer would be yes, but they haven't yet. So no, I haven't, but it's very easy for me to get to Southern California from Denver. So if you are out there and would like me to play for them, let them know. And who knows, maybe they'll give me a call. I'd love to play out there. LA is super fun. Let's see, what else? Guess that's about it for the chat. If you've got anything else, other questions that you want to ask, I think we're gonna kind of wrap things up here. I'm gonna play a little bit more to play us out, but if you have any questions or if you have anything that you'd like to ask or you didn't ask, this video will flip over to be a regular posted video in the live section of my YouTube channel. So you can go into the comments there and ask things and share it around to your friends and all that kind of stuff, and keep the algorithm happy that people like the videos and they watch the videos. So yeah, so I appreciate you guys tuning in, and I'm gonna keep jamming out here for a little bit, and then we'll call it a day on this live stream. Again, these are gonna be kind of random because it all depends on when I can do things based around my work schedule, family schedule, work travel, all that kind of stuff, shows. So this is 3 days in a row, and maybe I won't do another one for a few days or a week or two, I don't know. So if you subscribe, you'll be able to see you'll be able to get notified whenever these happen. And I just gotta, I don't usually promote them. I just pop them up. And if you want to join in, join in. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Appreciate it. And if you want to stick around and listen to a little music, I'm going to play for a little while. But other than that, thanks very much. And hope to see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.